My name's Amanda Blair and I am here today as your MC. I'm also the co-chair of the Premier's Council for Women, and it gives me great pleasure to be here today as we all learn a little bit more about White Ribbon and violence against women, what you should do if you see some violence against women, how to act and how to report. It's a really interesting area, obviously, and a very important area when you think that 1 in 3 women experience physical violence and 1 in 5 women in Australia experience sexual violence. It's obviously something that is going to touch each and every one of us in the room. I would like to welcome you all here today from the State Public Sector, Senior Management Council of the State Government of South Australia, IPA members and partners. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Premier Jay Weatherill, Vicky Chapman MP, Genevieve Lewis, Chief Executives of the Senior Management Council and other State Government Chief Executives. Great to see you all here today. IPA professional and corporate members, IPA councillors and IPA partners, Wallman's Lawyers, PwC and Flinders University. Thank you all so much for coming. I would also like to thank our speakers today, of course, the Premier of South Australia, Jay Weatherill, Dr Shannon Spriggs-Murdoch, Aman Abrahimzadeh and Michael O'Brien, and a little bit later on we're having a panel conversation after morning tea. We're going to hear from a few speakers this morning, then breaking for morning tea, and then we return, we'll be having a panel conversation with David Brown, Grant Stevens, Irma Ranieri, Anne Gale and Fiona Morton. Government sets the standard for many of the ways we live in this state, and it really is wonderful as a woman to have such strong support for violence against women from a government level. It really does inspire me, and it's great that in South Australia we have a Premier who really is putting a lot of effort behind reducing and hopefully ending violence against women. So it gives me great pleasure today to welcome to the lectern the Premier of South Australia, Mr Jay Weatherill.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Michael, for that wonderful welcome to country. And can I acknowledge Vicky Chapman, Deputy Leader of the Opposition, Anne Gale, Commissioner for Equal Opportunity, Ms Irma Ranieri, Commissioner for Public Sector Employment, Mr Aman Abrahimzadeh and Dr Shannon Spriggs-Murdoch, who are today's main speakers, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, especially the leaders of the organisations that are here, but all of the staff and executives of public sector agencies. Well, today we gather in this place to celebrate what really is a very pleasurable event. It's essentially a celebration of the milestones that we've achieved together in 2015 under the White Ribbon program. My main task today is really to thank you. Thank you for the leadership you've shown, for the participation in this most important event, for the individuals for demonstrating the moral courage and commitment to this important cause, and also the effort that you've made in spreading this important message across the South Australian public sector. And because we are the largest employer in the state, spreading it to the people of South Australia. I also want to thank the leaders and members of organisations for fulfilling many of the steps that are involved in the White Ribbon Workplace Accreditation process. Last year, we decided to take a stand, and that's what we called our policy, taking a stand on domestic violence. We knew that government had a major role to play as exercising the function of leadership in this important issue. As the largest employer, it was incumbent upon us to step up and lead by example. It was clear to me that the workplace is a vital venue in which we can bring together the practical steps that are necessary to make change in our society. After all, 2 out of every 3 Australian women who report violence are in paid employment, and most of the men that perpetrate this violence are in paid work. So the workplace is an important province for the communication and discussion of this message. It's in the workplace that we form relationships, we get to know people, and we're also in a position to monitor one another's welfare. And consistent with this observation, we made a commitment that it would be our policy that South Australian government departments would obtain accreditation. And we're pursuing that goal. We already started with one agency. The remaining 11 agencies are now pursuing that process. In 2015, under the leadership of the Commissioner for Equal Opportunity, the Office of Women and Others, we've made excellent progress on those plans. Those 11 additional agencies have carried out steps in the process throughout the year. Those steps have included electing senior male staff members to steering and implementation committees, completing initial staff surveys on the topic of domestic violence, providing employees with access to violence prevention training, and devising and implementing agency action plans. There are a number of tasks to be carried out and milestones to be achieved for those 11 agencies, but at this stage, they're all on track to obtain accreditation by the middle of next year. There have been other less formal indications of success. For example, there's a generally high level of awareness within the state public sector of the prevalence of violence against women. Money's been raised and donated to White Ribbon, with our Attorney General's Department raising $1,600, the most of any Australian workplace for White Ribbon Night. And agencies are improving the quality of their work by forging partnerships with expert services, such as the Working Women's Centre, the Flinders University Gender Consortium. But I want to emphasise that while much wonderful work has been done in this field, there is a lot more to be done. We'd like more agencies to embark upon the accreditation process beyond our 12 government departments. We want the original 12 agencies to develop promotional materials, coordinate in-house events, and review and refine their procedures for responding to domestic violence. And as I've said at various events this year in relation to domestic violence, but also in relation to gender equality more generally, the role of men is crucial. While obviously the profound effects of violence against women are affected by women in particular and often their families, including their children, it's up to men to understand that they play a critical role in changing these attitudes. A physical relationship with a woman does not confer ownership. Demeaning words and actions towards women are damaging and amount to the beginnings of a continuum of violence that begins with disrespect. It's up to men in their capacities as fathers, as sons, as brothers, as workmates and friends to tell other men that it's not okay to hurt women or discriminate against them. Now, I know the men in this room understand these matters. Your actions over the past year demonstrate just how much we can change the conversation and from there change attitudes. No one who has spoken to the victims of this awful violence, no one has heard the stories of people like Armin, can fail to comprehend the deep, long-term impact of domestic violence. And once you understand and comprehend that impact, no one can deny the important role that we can all play as work colleagues in identifying and ending this terrible scourge, not only in our state but in our broader Australian community. Not only is this a matter of justice for the women affected by this violence, but it diminishes the whole of our state, the whole of our nation. It holds back people from achieving their full potential. I have 2 little daughters. I don't want them to grow up in a world where they feel anything other than the capacity to be everything they want to be. I don't want them to grow up in a world where they fear violence. I don't want them to be diminished in any sense in the way in which they see their possibilities in the world. And if that translates across the whole of the Australian community, what that means is we're unlocking potential. And to do otherwise would be to limit our potential, to limit our productivity as a nation, to limit the possibilities for our great nation. So we have to maintain our efforts, not just through White Ribbon, but through other organisations where we support groups like the Zara Foundation, which held a moving and unforgettable launch event in the Convention Centre just back in September. So ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to be here today. It's one of the most important priorities I have in my role as Premier. I do want all of you to enjoy today. I hope it's instructive. I hope it assists you to take the next step in your workplaces. Thank you.